It is time for us to address an element that the collapsing West bros forget so often. They overlook it, they don't talk about it, and today we're here to address this so important issue. What we're talking about today is rule of law. Rule of law is the political ideal that citizens, residents, long-term visa holders, institutions, all people in the country are treated equal by the law. And this is something that is not universal, trust me about this. After having been abroad, so many countries, after having lived in countries, started businesses, ran businesses in countries, I know this issue to a T. I've seen different systems, I've seen different laws for different people in different countries. And I've seen the same laws for everyone in one particular country. Now, this is a burning issue, and this is an untalked subject because sometimes it's not politically correct to talk about this. But if you are a foreigner, if you're an expat, if you're a digital nomad seeking to live abroad, then this might be one of the most important videos that you will ever watch. For the simple reason that when you move abroad, you want to be protected by law. Being abroad is a big responsibility, it's a big risk, especially if you're not familiar with the legal structure of the country that you're living in. And so rule of law is critical. Let's have a look at property ownership. There's so many countries where a foreigner is not allowed to own property. Be it a long-term visa holder, be it a resident, you're not allowed to own property. Only citizens of the country are allowed to own property. To make matters even worse, it is close to impossible, and in many cases it is impossible, to become a citizen of a certain country. Now, if you want to establish yourself in a country like this, from a financial point of view, it might not be possible. From an asset point of view, it might not be possible. That's why so many people recommend not having real estate in certain countries where they can't own real estate, or they recommend not starting a business in certain countries where they cannot own the business. This is a really common issue, especially in Asia, where governments say, you know what, foreigners, they can come to our country, they can visit. Maybe we even give them a long-term visa or a resident pass. It might not be a residency anyway, but they might give you certain privileges, but they don't give you the full package of rule of law. The full rule of law package is not included. And this is oftentimes a reality people wake up to. This is an expectation that certain people have. If you come from a certain country where rule of law is guaranteed by the Constitution, and you move to a place where this is not the case, you're often confronted with some really upsetting realities of having to leave the country, perhaps, right? You have to leave the country because you want to buy real estate, you want to start a company, you want to become a citizen, you want to own land, all these different things. You cannot do that. So you wake up and you're like, wow, I never expected that to become my own reality. I'm from a country where we give every person the same rights. And here I am in a different country where I'm getting very few rights. And this doesn't just apply to property rights. We're also talking about civil rights. Everything that's included here, freedom of speech. And so this is like one of the most burning issues that I don't see people talk about at all. It is a neglected subject. And there are certain countries where you are only allowed to own real estate in designated areas. There's certain areas where you can own real estate. In other areas, you cannot. Likewise, you cannot own land in certain countries, right? You might be able to own the house, but you're not allowed to own the land, which is a tricky situation, right? How do you get around that? Well, there are typically a few ways how you can get around that. Sometimes people choose the path that makes the most sense for them, or potentially it's the only option, which means that they put the house or in the land, it's either or, they put it under their wife's name, which is an option. Don't get me wrong, you're legally married, okay, your wife is allowed to own the land in the country you're living in, so why not put the land under your wife's name? It's a very typical solution to the problem until you get divorced and you realize that you have no rights to the asset because you're not protected by law. Again, weak rule of law does not protect you in the event of a divorce because you're an outsider, you're a foreigner. This is one of the biggest issues that people have to overcome in certain countries where they're like, wow, I never thought that that's going to be such a problem. Or they feel like, okay, I'm going to get married. I'm going to put the house under my wife's name or my husband's name. Everything's going to be perfect going forward. But that's not how life works. Relationships work and they fail. It depends on many factors. And sometimes we're lucky, sometimes we're unlucky. Sometimes people get together with us under the right conditions. And sometimes they have good intentions. Sometimes they have bad intentions. Sometimes we have good intentions. And sometimes we have bad intentions. We never know how this will pan out. This is a gamble. This is like you going to the casino and putting all your money on red and hoping that the ball will land on red. I mean, it's crazy to do that, right? And so many people do that because it seems to be the only option out there, which is true in many cases, unless you're willing to take a more adjustable approach, if you will. If you're willing to own real estate in different countries where you are protected by the Constitution, you will be in for more safety than if you put all your eggs in a basket that got no insurance, right? It's like you sitting in a car, you're driving a car, you have no insurance, you get hit. It's your fault, right? If you hit someone, it's your fault. You get no insurance, you're screwed. It's really important to think this through and really make a decision that is sensible for the long term, because you don't want to end up being in a situation where you lose your asset, where you lose your rights because you never had any rights to begin with. You have to start again from zero. This is happening to so many people. I've seen so many people commenting on this channel. I've personally known people. I personally know people who this happened to. Okay, so we're not making stuff up here, right? This is not a fabrication. This is reality. This is reality right here. If you are thinking about this, then you really have to think twice about it. And it might be best just to rent in a country where weak rule of law is in place and buy in a country with strong rule of law. Really think about this. You know, you got the polar opposites. They're really polar opposites. You cannot go to a country and change the Constitution. If you think that, you're being delusional. If you go to a country, you got to accept the country for what it is, for the laws that are in place, for the benefits that you get, for the things you got to swallow. There are certain things that are not going to be perfect. That's just how it is, right? No place is perfect. The West's not perfect. The East's not perfect. Yet so many people go into places believing that everything will be perfect. It's delusional thinking and it will not work. So if you set your expectations right and you meet them, you're in a much better situation than if you go out there blindly believing in things that people are telling you or blindly putting all your money into the uninsured basket, thinking that it will never get stolen, that nothing bad will happen to the basket, right? Eggs break. Happens all the time. So really think this through. I mean, this is serious stuff here, right? Like I've seen people put their whole life savings into an asset that they don't own. They worked decades to get that asset and they put all of it, all their money into that asset just to realize they have no protection or just to realize that the relationship won't work and that they're screwed. I've seen this happening so many times, it's unbelievable. And I want to bring awareness to the general population to avoid these very pitfalls, to save you money, to protect your assets. Your retirement nest egg is the most important thing that you have. If you don't have that, and not everyone is a millionaire or a multimillionaire, and if you are not at an age like I am, if you're already in your 50s and 60s and you don't have time to recoup that money, yet you're willing to take the risk, better think twice about it. Seriously, better think twice about it. If this is all that you've got, you better make the best decision that you can with the money. I want to give you another example here that underlines how fragile contracts are in certain countries. So I rented this apartment, and it was supposed to be pet friendly. My dog's right here. And we had the agreement that my dog can live in the apartment. Guess what happened? One Sunday, my dog barked. We were not there. We were not present to even say that he barked or not, or how long he barked. We don't know that, but we were told that our dog barked and that we had to move out. And we were like, whoa, we had this agreement, this was in our contract, this and that. And, we're not going to move out because we got this contract. Well, guess what? The contract was useless. The contract was worthless. Because we ended up being confronted with the police, which I'm sure they tipped off in order to get us out. We had the agreement then that we were going to move out and that we were going to get our deposit back. So the landlady confirmed this. And then when the day hit, They came with the security. They pretty much forced us out, took the key, forced us out. We already everything packed, cleaned the apartment. We've done everything that we could in our best interest and also in their best interest, but we were forced out pretty much illegally. But since the rule of law in the country was so weak, we're talking about Vietnam, the rule of law was so weak that I had no chance to do anything, because we ended up contacting and going to the government office that would handle such problems just to be told that they wouldn't deal with such a case between a foreigner and a local, a Vietnamese. And I woke up and I smelled the roses. So this was a big learning experience for me at the time, where I felt like, wow, I was invincible in that country, but little did I know the legal system was not in my favor. It was in the favor of the local, unlike what we're used to in Western countries where people are treated equal and there's no institutionalized racism, right? There's no institutionalized discrimination against people from different places, different geographic locations. There's no such thing. But in that country, that was very, very real. So I just want to say here that you really have to watch where you put your money and research. Research, 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 and talk to people who have more experience than you. Like, if you've been doing this for decades, great. You're probably the person to listen to. But if you're just getting started, if you've never lived in the country where you are looking to buy real estate, it is more than sensible if you go out there and start seeking advice from people who have lived in that country or who know about the legal situation much better than you do. Because again, you don't want to end up in a situation where you are putting your finances at risk. Your personal health is related to your financial situation. Even relationships, even marriages that fail, the lack of financial strength is often the problem and the reason behind a split up or a divorce. So it's not all the time, I'm not saying that, but often it is. You can do what you can do, right? And the control again comes from the inside, and you can control the decisions that you make, where you invest your money. This is your decision. This is not my decision. This is not your wife's decision. You make this decision for yourself. You decide for yourself, where is the best place for me to invest? Where am I protected by law? Where can I access strong rule of law that is not in favor of any particular individual or group, institution, whatever, but it's equal for everyone? And where do I want to live? So you want to figure these things out before you make any financial decision, right? Before you pull the trigger. This is so important. And yet so many people get it wrong and regret it painfully for a long time, because if you're losing your money in a country where you're not protected by the Constitution, it's one of the worst things that can happen to you. And it happens to thousands of people every year, every single year. So be smart, protect yourself, and really think twice about where you invest. And I want to hear from you in terms of finances. Did anything bad happen to you? I'd like to hear from you. If you have any experience to share, then you're welcome to send me an email, and I see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.